Bates baby boom. Trace and Lydia are expecting twins. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the curtains of the Bates' cozy Tennessee home. Birds chirped outside, but inside, Lydia Bates moved through the quiet kitchen with a weight she could hardly explain. She tried to focus on breakfast, pouring cereal, making coffee, but her hands trembled slightly, and her mind kept drifting to the strange fatigue she had felt for days. Trace Bates, her husband, was in the living room, strumming his guitar absent-mindedly. The soft notes filled the house, but Lydia barely noticed. She kept replaying the feeling of emptiness and hope that had been quietly growing inside her. She glanced at the calendar. The date stared back at her. She felt a lump in her throat. Late, she thought. Her pulse quickened and tears pricked her eyes. Trace set down his guitar and noticed her distant look. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, voice gentle. Lydia forced a small smile. "Yeah, just give me a minute," she murmured. In the bathroom, with trembling hands, Lydia held the small test kit. Her heart pounded like a drum. Time seemed to stretch. 1 line, 2 lines. Her breath caught. Tears blurred her vision. She sank to the floor, overwhelmed by the impossible truth. They were going to have a baby. Minutes later, she stepped out, her hands shaking, tears streaming freely. Trace's eyes searched hers, filled with concern. "Trace," she whispered, holding out the test. He took it, frozen for a moment. Then his eyes widened. A smile slowly, uncontrollably spread across his face. "No, this is real?" "Yes," she choked out, laughter and sobs mingling. "We're going to be parents." Trace dropped to his knees in front of her, holding her hands, kissing them, whispering prayers of gratitude and awe. "God, thank you, we're going to be parents," he repeated over and over. They sat on the living room floor, holding each other, letting the magnitude of this moment wash over them. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, sunlight dancing across the porch, birds singing as if the whole world had paused to celebrate with them. Days later, at the doctor's office, the anticipation was nearly unbearable. The ultrasound machine hummed quietly. Lydia and Trace held hands tightly, eyes locked on the screen. The doctor smiled, placing the wand carefully on Lydia's belly. "Well, it looks like you're not having just one." Trace's heart skipped. Lydia's hand flew to her mouth. The doctor's next words hung in the air like a thunderclap. "You're having twins." The room seemed to spin. 2 tiny heartbeats. 2 tiny lives growing inside her. Trace embraced Lydia, tears flowing freely. "Twins, twins," he whispered, almost in disbelief, his voice breaking. Lydia leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder, overwhelmed by a tidal wave of love, fear, and joy. I can't believe it," she whispered, her voice trembling. Outside, sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating their intertwined hands and the faint sound of twin heartbeats from the screen. It was the start of a new chapter, one full of laughter, sleepless nights, first steps, and unconditional love, but also challenges they had never imagined. And so, in the quiet of the doctor's office, with hearts racing and tears falling, Lydia and Trace Bates began a journey that would change their lives forever. Little did they know, their world was about to get even bigger. The news of the twins rippled through the Bates home like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Lydia and Trace walked hand in hand into the living room, still trying to absorb the reality of having not one, but 2 tiny lives growing inside her. The house, usually bustling with laughter and chatter from older siblings, now felt quiet, almost reverent. Each step they took echoed like the heartbeat of the new life waiting to enter the world. Trace sank into the couch, pulling Lydia close. "I keep thinking, how are we going to do this? 2 babies." His voice trembled, a mixture of excitement and fear. Lydia rested her head on his shoulder. "We'll figure it out together. Like we always do." Her voice was soft but steady, carrying the weight of love and determination. That evening, the family gathered. The older siblings noticed something different. Lydia's glowing face, Trace's wide smile, and the secret that danced in their eyes. One by one, questions poured out. "Mom, Dad, are you serious?" asked one of the older children. "Yes," Lydia said, laughter and tears mingling in her voice. "You're going to have 2 new little brothers or sisters soon." The room erupted in excitement, hugs, squeals, and tears. Each sibling expressed joy in their own way, from quiet smiles to jumping around the room, already imagining the fun, chaos, and love the twins would bring. Later that night, as the house settled into silence, Trace and Lydia sat by the fireplace. The soft crackle of the flames mirrored the warmth between them. Trace whispered almost to himself, "I never imagined. I mean twins. This is beyond anything I could have dreamed." Lydia placed her hand over his. "I know. But it's real. And it's ours." The next weeks were filled with preparations. Cribs were assembled, tiny clothes folded, and names quietly debated. The siblings helped in every way they could, their excitement contagious. The walls of the Bates home seemed to hum with anticipation, love, and a touch of nervous energy. One afternoon, as Lydia rested on the couch, Trace watched her, heart swelling with love. He knew that life was about to change forever. Two tiny hearts beating in rhythm with their own. Two new souls that would bring joy, sleepless nights, laughter, and tears. Everything a family could hold. Then came the first ultrasound that revealed the tiny faces and tiny movements of the twins. Lydia gasped, tears streaming down her face. Trace held her, whispering softly, "They're perfect. Just perfect." Even the older siblings crowded around the screen, their eyes wide, mouths slightly open. Each heartbeat, each flutter on the monitor, felt like a miracle unfolding right before their eyes. Night after night, Trace and Lydia would sit together, talking to the babies in gentle whispers. "We can't wait to meet you," they would say, voices thick with emotion. "We're already so in love with you." The days passed slowly but beautifully, filled with anticipation, love, and little moments that would become treasured memories. The family learned patience, hope, and the deep, unshakable bonds that only family can bring. And through it all, Lydia and Trace knew one thing with certainty: their lives would never be the same again, in the most beautiful way possible. But little did they know, the real challenges of raising twins, the sleepless nights, and the surprises of parenthood were still waiting to unfold. The next chapter of their story would test their strength, deepen their love, and show the true meaning of family in ways they had never imagined. The days grew heavier with anticipation. Lydia's belly was round and full now, a constant reminder of the two tiny lives growing within her. Each movement of the twins made her pause, holding her breath, sometimes in awe, sometimes in worry. Trace never left her side. His hands were always there, on her back, on her shoulders, brushing strands of hair from her face. Yet even his strength and love could not fully erase the worry that gnawed at both of them. Twins were a blessing, yes, but also a challenge they had only begun to imagine. One evening, Lydia sat on the couch, cradling her stomach, tears spilling freely. The reality of the journey pressed down on her. "Trace, what if something goes wrong?" Her voice trembled, filled with fear she hadn't admitted before. Trace sat beside her, holding her hands tightly. Hey, listen to me," he whispered, voice steady but soft. "We've been through so much together. These babies, they're strong. And so are we. I'll be with you every step." But even as he spoke, his own heart raced. The thought of bringing twins into the world, the sleepless nights, the challenges, the unknown, weighed heavily on him. He pressed his forehead against hers, sharing the fear in silence, letting their mutual love and trust hold them together. The family tried to help as much as they could. Older siblings cleaned the nursery, organized clothes, and even read to Lydia's belly, hoping the twins could hear their voices. Their excitement was palpable, but the tension in the home was growing too. Every doctor's visit, every ultrasound, was a mixture of joy and anxiety. One afternoon, Lydia felt a sharp pain. Trace rushed to her side, panic flashing across his face. "Lydia, are you okay?" I don't know," she gasped, gripping his arm. Tears ran down her face, but this time fear dominated over joy. They called the doctor immediately, the drive to the office filled with silent prayers and whispered reassurances. When the ultrasound began, the room held its collective breath. The doctor smiled gently. "Everything looks good. Just a little early labor sign. You're safe, but rest is crucial." Trace let out a shaky breath, relief washing over him in waves. Lydia's tears turned from fear to gratitude, hugging him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being here." Night fell, and the house grew quiet once more. The older siblings tiptoed past the bedrooms, aware of the fragile balance of emotions. Trace and Lydia sat together, speaking softly to each other and to the babies. "We're ready for you," Lydia whispered. "We love you already. More than anything." Trace kissed her forehead. "And we'll protect you always." But even in the quiet of the night, both knew that the true test of their love and strength was yet to come. The twins would soon arrive, and life as they knew it would transform forever. Full of joy, tears, challenges, and unforgettable memories. Outside, the wind rustled the trees once more, as if nature itself held its breath, waiting with them for the miracle that was almost ready to enter the world. This part builds emotional tension and drama, showing the struggles and fears leading up to the twins' arrival. The night air was still and quiet, but inside the Bates home, a storm of emotions was building. Lydia's contractions had started early in the morning, small at first, then growing stronger with every passing hour. Trace never left her side, holding her hand, whispering words of comfort, and brushing the damp strands of hair from her forehead. "Breathe with me, Lydia. In and out," he urged gently, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Lydia nodded through gritted teeth, her eyes glistening with tears of pain and anticipation. The older siblings waited anxiously at home, their excitement mingled with worry. Texts and calls flew between family members, each one offering prayers, encouragement, and love. By the time they arrived at the hospital, the reality hit harder than ever. The sterile lights, the beeping machines, and the hurried footsteps of nurses made the moment feel both surreal and sacred. Lydia clutched Trace's hand, whispering, I can't believe it's time." Trace pressed a kiss to her temple. "You're so strong, Lydia. You've got this, we've got this together." Hours passed in a blur of contractions, deep breaths, and unspoken prayers. And then in the quiet of the delivery room, the first cry pierced the air. "It's a girl," the nurse announced. Trace's eyes filled with tears as he looked at Lydia, who was shaking, exhausted but radiant with joy. The tiny baby girl lay in her arms, a perfect little miracle, her fingers curling around Lydia's hand. But before they could catch their breath, another cry filled the room. "It's a boy." Two little lives born within minutes of each other, their tiny hearts beating with strength and promise. Lydia and Trace stared at each other, speechless, tears streaming freely down their faces. "Twins are twins," Trace whispered, his voice cracking, overwhelmed with love. The nurses gently placed the boy in Lydia's other arm. The room seemed to hold its breath as the couple marveled at their children. The tiny fingers, the delicate toes, the soft, perfect faces. Trace leaned over, pressing a gentle kiss to Lydia's forehead. "We made these miracles together. Look at them, they're ours." Lydia, exhausted but glowing, whispered softly to the babies, "We've been waiting for you. We love you so much already." Hours later, back in their hospital room, the Bates family gathered through video calls and messages, each sibling excitedly sending love, congratulations, and tears. Though miles apart, the bond of family felt stronger than ever. That night, as Lydia and Trace held their newborns close, the world outside seemed to fade. The soft hum of the hospital, the faint rustle of sheets, and the quiet breathing of two new lives created a moment so sacred, so powerful, that time itself seemed to pause. Trace looked down at Lydia, his voice soft but filled with awe. "We did it, they're here, our babies, our twins." Lydia smiled through tears, holding both babies close. "They're perfect, just perfect. And so loved already." The first night was long and filled with awe, whispers, and quiet tears of joy. Every heartbeat, every tiny sigh, every movement reminded them of the miracle they had brought into the world. Outside, the Tennessee sky held its stars in silence, as if watching, blessing, and celebrating the arrival of two new lives who would forever change the Bates family. And so began the next chapter. A chapter of sleepless nights, immeasurable love, and a family that would grow stronger, closer, and more united than ever before. The Bates home, once filled with quiet routines and soft hums of daily life, was now alive with a new kind of energy. Two tiny cries echoed through the halls, weaving through every room, announcing the arrival of new life. Lydia and Trace carefully carried the twins through the doorway, their hearts pounding with love, excitement, and exhaustion. The older siblings gathered around, eyes wide with amazement and curiosity. "Mom, Dad, they're so tiny," one whispered, voice trembling with awe. "They're perfect," said another, gently reaching out a hand, afraid to disturb the fragile new lives. Trace set the twins in their cribs, carefully adjusting the blankets, whispering softly, "You're safe, you're loved. We'll always be here for you." Lydia rested on the couch, watching her family, tears spilling freely. "I can't believe they're finally here," she murmured. It's everything we ever dreamed of." The days that followed were a whirlwind of feeding schedules, diaper changes, and sleepless nights. Trace moved from crib to crib, rocking each baby, singing softly to soothe them. Lydia, though exhausted, found herself smiling through the fog of fatigue every time she looked at their tiny faces. The older siblings took turns helping, learning quickly the art of gentle care, holding a baby just right, whispering lullabies, and offering support to their parents. The house, once predictable and calm, now echoed with the sounds of life, love, and laughter. But it wasn't always easy. Nights were long. There were tears of frustration, moments of doubt, and the relentless weight of responsibility. One late night, Trace held both babies, trying to soothe their cries while Lydia leaned against him, exhausted but grateful. "How are we going to manage this?" he whispered, voice weary yet tender. Lydia placed her hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "Together. We always have. And we always will." Through the chaos, the family discovered new strengths, patience, compassion, and the quiet joy of tiny milestones. The first smile, the tiny coos, the moments when the twins' eyes met their parents for the first time. These were treasures that filled the home with warmth and hope. Even in moments of fatigue and uncertainty, Lydia and Trace found themselves laughing through tears. A spit up here, a diaper leak there, and suddenly the house was alive with imperfect, beautiful chaos. A true testament to family love. By the end of the week, as the sun set over the Tennessee hills, Lydia and Trace sat together on the porch, twins sleeping peacefully in their arms. The older siblings played quietly nearby, casting occasional glances toward the little ones. Trace whispered almost to himself, This is real. We're really doing it. We're a family of 4 more than before. 6 now, and it's perfect." Lydia rested her head against his shoulder, smiling through exhaustion. "It's overwhelming, but in the best way. They're ours, and they're going to be so loved." Outside, the stars sparkled above, casting a gentle glow over the home. Inside, hearts beat in rhythm with 2 new little lives, and the Bates family embraced the beauty, chaos, and love that came with welcoming twins into their world. The journey had only just begun, and every day promised new challenges, new joys, and countless moments that would shape the lives of this extraordinary family forever. The Bates home had settled into a rhythm, though it was a rhythm entirely different from what anyone had known before. Nights were still long, but each day brought new joys, small victories, and unforgettable moments. Lydia watched as Trace cradled one twin while the other rested peacefully against her chest. The baby's tiny fingers curled instinctively around their parents' hands, anchoring the couple to this new beautiful reality. "I can't believe how fast they're growing," Lydia whispered, voice thick with awe. "It feels like just yesterday they were in the hospital." Trace smiled, gently brushing his thumb across the tiny hand of one baby. "Every day they're changing, discovering, and we're discovering with them." The older siblings had quickly adapted to their new roles. They learned to soothe cries, fetch diapers, and offer gentle smiles and encouragement when Lydia and Trace felt exhausted. The house was filled with laughter, soft lullabies, and occasional chaos, the perfect balance of love and imperfection. Yet, challenges crept in like shadows. One afternoon, Lydia noticed the twins fussing endlessly, no matter what she tried. Her exhaustion boiled over into frustration, and tears of helplessness pricked her eyes. Trace held her close. "It's okay to feel overwhelmed," he murmured. "We're learning, and we're not alone. Look at our family, we've got each other." His words, tender and unwavering, reminded her that love was stronger than fear or fatigue. Slowly, Lydia breathed through the frustration, letting the weight lift as Trace gently soothed the babies. The twins' first smiles arrived like sunshine through clouds. Lydia and Trace caught each one, overjoyed, tears streaming freely. "Look at that smile," Trace whispered, voice breaking. "They know they're loved. They feel it already." Evenings were the hardest but also the most beautiful. After feeding, diaper changes, and quiet whispers, the family would gather in the living room. Trace would strum his guitar softly, Lydia hummed lullabies, and the older siblings tiptoed around, careful not to disturb the tiny slumbering lives in their arms. One night, Lydia leaned back, Cradling both twins, and Trace whispered beside her, "We've done something incredible. These little hearts, they're ours to protect, to love, forever." Lydia nodded, overwhelmed by gratitude and awe. "And they've already taught us so much about patience, about love, about ourselves." But life, as always, had small surprises in store. One of the twins developed a minor fever in the middle of the night. Panic rose like a tide, but Lydia and Trace moved with calm determination, calling the doctor and monitoring every tiny movement, every little breath. When the fever passed and the twins slept peacefully again, Lydia and Trace clung to each other, relief washing over them in waves. "We survived the night," Trace said quietly, smiling through exhaustion, "and we'll survive every challenge together." Outside, the Tennessee hills shimmered under the morning sun. Inside, laughter, soft cries, and whispered prayers filled the Bates home. Every day brought new lessons, small victories, and the profound realization that life had changed forever. And in the most beautiful, overwhelming way. Lydia and Trace looked at each other across the living room, eyes full of love and determination. "This is just the beginning," Lydia whispered. "Yes," Trace agreed, gently rocking one twin in his arms. "The beginning of everything. All over again." The journey of raising twins with love, laughter, tears, and countless moments of growth had only just begun, and the Bates family was ready to embrace it all. The days in the Bates household had settled into a lively, if sometimes chaotic, rhythm. The twins were beginning to show their personalities, little hints of curiosity, determination, and mischief shining through their tiny faces. Lydia watched in awe as one of the twins reached out for a rattle, gripping it with tiny, determined fingers. Trace, sitting nearby, couldn't help but laugh softly. "Look at them. Already so strong, so full of life." The older siblings crowded around, cheering quietly, careful not to startle the babies. "They're so smart," one whispered. "I can't believe how fast they're growing." Life with twins brought constant challenges. Sleep was a luxury long forgotten, and every day was a careful balance of feeding schedules, diaper changes, and keeping the household running smoothly. There were tears, both from the babies and the parents, frustration mixed with love in every moment. One afternoon, Lydia felt overwhelmed. The twins were fussy, nothing seemed to calm them, and exhaustion pressed down on her like a heavy blanket. She sank into the couch, hiding her face in her hands. Trace came beside her, gently brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "It's okay to feel tired," he whispered. "This is hard, but we're doing it. And they feel our love, every single day." His words brought tears to Lydia's eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude and reassurance. She took a deep breath, gathering her strength, and smiled through the exhaustion. "You're right, we've got this. We're in it together." The days passed with small milestones that felt monumental. The twins rolled over for the first time, their tiny hands reaching for each other instinctively. They giggled, a sound so pure and infectious that the whole house seemed to brighten. Lydia and Trace exchanged a look, tears welling in both of their eyes. "We made this together," Trace whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Evenings became the most cherished time of day. The family gathered in the living room, the twins nestled in Lydia and Trace's arms, older siblings playing quietly around them. Trace would strum his guitar softly, Lydia hummed lullabies, and the house was filled with gentle harmony. But life with twins wasn't without surprises. One evening, the boy twin fell ill, a small fever that sent panic through Lydia's chest. Trace held him gently while Lydia comforted the girl twin, praying for health and safety. Hours later, when the fever broke and both twins slept peacefully, Lydia and Trace embraced, relief and love coursing through every fiber of their beings. "We've got this, no matter what," Trace whispered. The twins' laughter and milestones became the heartbeat of the household. The older siblings were learning patience, responsibility, and unconditional love, while Lydia and Trace discovered reservoirs of strength they never knew they had. Night after night, as the Tennessee stars shone above, Lydia and Trace sat together in quiet reflection, the twins asleep in their arms. All of this, it's everything," Lydia whispered. Trace kissed her forehead. "It's just the beginning. Every day will bring something new, something wonderful. And we'll face it all together." The journey of parenthood with twins was far from easy, but it was filled with love, laughter, tears, and unforgettable moments. Moments that would bind the Bates family even closer, creating a lifetime of memories and stories to cherish forever. The Tennessee morning sun poured softly through the curtains, casting a golden glow over the Bates home. The house, once filled with anticipation, laughter, and chaos, now felt like a sanctuary of love. A home transformed by two tiny lives that had changed everything. Lydia cradled the twins in her arms, their tiny bodies warm against her chest. One yawned, the other stirred, and both reached for her fingers instinctively. Trace knelt beside her, eyes brimming with tears, brushing his hand gently over Lydia's cheek. "They're ours," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "All of this, every sleepless night, every worry, it led to this. They're here and they're perfect." Lydia nodded, her own tears flowing freely. "I never imagined love could feel like this. So overwhelming, so endless. Look at them. They've made us a family in ways I never thought possible." The older siblings gathered around, softly touching the twins, whispering words of love and laughter. One leaned over, planting a gentle kiss on the boy twin's forehead. Another wrapped tiny arms around Lydia's waist, her eyes shimmering. "You made our family even bigger," the eldest whispered, voice filled with pride. "And even more full of love." Trace held Lydia close, his heart full. "We did this together. Every day, every challenge, every tear, we did it together." The twins stirred again, their little cries filling the room. Lydia and Trace exchanged a glance, hearts pounding with love and awe. These tiny beings, fragile, innocent, miraculous, had already brought the family closer than ever. Later, as the sun began to set, the family gathered on the porch. The air was filled with the soft whispers of the wind, the gentle rustle of the trees, and the distant chirping of birds. Lydia and Trace sat side by side, twins resting peacefully against them, older siblings leaning close, laughter and gentle chatter filling the space. Trace whispered softly, almost to himself, "We've been given a gift, two miracles that will grow, laugh, cry, and love in this world. And we'll be here for every moment." Lydia pressed her forehead against his. "They've taught us more than we could ever imagine about patience, hope, love, and the beauty of family. And they've reminded us that life, even in its chaos, is breathtaking." The twins stirred once more, tiny hands reaching for their parents' faces. Lydia smiled through tears, whispering, "We love you, more than anything." Trace added, voice breaking with emotion, "And we always will, forever." The camera of life, if it could have captured this moment, would have shown a family bound not just by blood, but by love, devotion, and shared triumphs. Every tear, every smile, every sleepless night had led to this perfect, heart-stopping moment. And as the Tennessee stars blinked awake in the evening sky, Lydia and Trace held their twins close, older siblings surrounding them, and the home echoed with quiet joy. A family complete, stronger than ever, ready to face the world together. Because love, they realized, wasn't just in the milestones or the moments of laughter. It was in the quiet, in the struggles, in the hands held tight during the hardest nights. And with the twins in their arms, Lydia and Trace Bates knew their hearts had grown infinitely, their family had become whole, and the journey of love had only just begun.